it very well. So once again, to reiterate that steps of lobar pneumonia, what are the four important steps? Congestion, red hepatization, grey hepatization, and complete resolution. Why we call it a complete resolution? Because after this process the macrophage will take place, is important cell to cause a resolution, to produce a resolution, and you can see the restoration of the normal histology of the lungs. So this is why lobar pneumonia is much better than bronchopneumonia, and you can understand it is a natural process. If we add some antibiotics on the top of it, automatically there is a very good chance the patient will come back to completely normal. So once again, remember that the cell that is responsible for the resolution process is macrophage. Now, lobar pneumonia, despite the fact that it has a very good biological process, still lobar pneumonia can have some complications. In case the patient is very ill or the patient is very much malnourished, what can happen in that case? You get something known as pleural empyema. What is a pleural empyema? As we remember from our previous portion of the lecture, that in a patient with a lobar pneumonia, we can see exudate present in the alveolus. Now what is happening if the disease is bad? This exudate now will be present in the pleural space, and when the exudate are present in the pleural space, we call it a pleural empyema. It is definitely a very dangerous condition. And if we get a pleural empyema, the mass like material, exudate is a kind of mass. So we get a exudate in the pleural space. As a result of this thing, it will compress the lung tissue. So if it is compressing the lung tissue, what kind of change we can see in the lung? We can get a collapse of the lung, that we have discussed, or atelectasis of the lung, compression atelectasis. So pleural empyema can cause a compression atelectasis, which is a very severe condition. So that is one complication that you might get from the lobar pneumonia. In addition to that thing, what we might find, this inflammatory process may involve the pleura, and when you get such involvement, we get a disease which is known as pleuritis, which is once again a dangerous condition as well. Now the infection is not only limited to the lung, it is involving the pleura. So as we see the complications of lobar pneumonia, it sounds very bad, dangerous. Then we are coming to another dangerous complication of pneumonia, which is really dangerous, and patient may die because of that. So what is that complication? It is known as organized pneumonia. In many occurrences, it can happen that this complete resolution does not take place. So if the complete resolution does not take place, what can happen? The exudate, which supposedly removed by the macrophages, this process will not take place. So exudate remains into the alveolus, and these exudates which is in the alveolus, they undergo fibrosis. So now what is happening? There is a fibrosis or the fibrotic tissue inside this alveolus, and this fibrosis can occur in all alveolus in the entire lobe. So you can easily understand the dangerous aspect of this complication. So this situation, when the alveolus is filled up with the collagen, filled up with the fibrous tissue, this scenario is known as organized pneumonia. So can you tell me what is happening at that moment? The lung becomes solid. It becomes solid. Patient cannot take any kind of respiration. The only treatment for this particular scenario is the transplantation. It is also known as alveolar fibrosis. In addition to this organized pneumonia, we can get the fibrous scar in the pleura, which is also definitely dangerous. So it is basically a chronic transformation of the lobar pneumonia. Lobar pneumonia becoming chronic. So once it is chronic, we get two scenarios: pleural scar and organization of the pneumonia. So please do remember these two complications of lobar pneumonia: fibrous scar and organized pneumonia, which is also known as alveolar fibrosis. Now let me discuss something about the clinical course. You know, this is a very important point. Lobar pneumonia patient, how they clinically present to you. Almost all patients with the lobar pneumonia usually present with a very high rise of temperature, and sometimes it can go up to 104, 105, 104, 105 degree Fahrenheit. You cannot really touch the body of the patient. It is so hot. Patient will have extreme chest pain. And what is very classical, the patient will have a productive sputum. You can see the sputum which is purulent because it contains exudate which is coming up from the alveolus. You know, the alveolus is connected to the airway. So when the patient is coughing, this exudate will come out. In other way, it is good. It is better for the patient, because exudate, if it is staying in the lung, it is not good. But remember one thing: since this exudate can be mixed up with a little bit of blood, RBC or erythrocyte, this sputum may be rust in color. But why rust? Why not it is a bright red? It is rust in color because of the hemosiderin. You know that in the red hepatization we are having RBC. This RBC undergoing destruction, and once the RBC destroy themselves, we get the hemoglobin which will transform into hemosiderin, and that is why it will have a rust in color, because hemosiderin is not very bright red in color. So this is a very important point, once again a very important clinical point for the diagnosis of the lobar pneumonia. A sputum which is rust in color because it contains RBC and some hemosiderin pigments. The patient will have a very high rise of temperature and extreme and severe amount of chest pain. So this is what is lobar pneumonia look like. So this is a time we can recall the lobar pneumonia. So when I discuss pneumonia, you know what is the definition of pneumonia. Pneumonia means consolidation of the lung, and this consolidation occurs because of the accumulation of exudate in the lung. Lung becomes solid. The consistency of the lung will be like a consistency of the liver. And this lobar pneumonia, we call it a lobar pneumonia because it involves the entire lobe diffusely, and the classical organism in that case is a Diplococcus, which is also known as Pneumococcus. Overall, prognosis of the lobar pneumonia is better than the bronchopneumonia, which is our next topic. Now bronchopneumonia, I want you to spell out this name again: bronchopneumonia. Bronchopneumonia. So here bronchus plays an important role in the lobar pneumonia. As I told you, the lobar pneumonia